So the first excerpts of 107 Days, the new book former Vice President Kamala Harris wrote about her presidential campaign, has been released. She writes that Democrats were reckless to let President Biden and his wife Jill be the only ones deciding if he should run again, and that some Democrats waged a smear campaign against her before she became the nominee. What do you think about these revelations?
Well, fine, I'll go first. I have to say, I did not have Kamala Harris taking the gloves off on my bingo card, but I respect that she wants to set the record straight for the history books. Listen, I give her tremendous credit for a few things that she did in that 107-day stretch. She raised over $1 billion. She locked up all of the Democratic delegates within 24 hours. She kept a rigorous schedule on the campaign trail. She did many things that I think no other politician could do in that time span. But I think in many ways she was set up to fail. And I'm not saying that this was some grand strategy against her, but it's a rule of thumb in White Houses that presidents and their teams are always looking out for the VP. They don't want them to take too much of the spotlight. They don't want them to do better than them. So what happened is oftentimes things she was doing didn't get credit. When negative things were said about her, there wasn't pushback for her. And she goes into great detail about this. I dealt with it with Pence and with Trump when I worked for him. That's something that happens. But the truth is this, in my opinion, looking back, the glaring signs were there that Donald Trump was going to win. 2/3 of the country said they felt like the country was on the wrong track and they wanted a different direction. In this country, you only get two options in a major election. You get one of the two. And I think you could have put the best political athlete in there, and they were going to lose because of those headwinds that Joe Biden couldn't shake and she couldn't break from him with.
How could they possibly predict or go against Trump at that time? Even though he tanked the economy, he instigated an insurrection. What else did he do? He botched the response to the COVID epidemic. Take bleach. You know, he was doing all of those things, so they figured they were going to get it. He's going to lose. How could he win after all the stupid things he's done? Yeah. And then he won anyway.
Because he had to listen to the voters.
I mean, and who would have predicted that Elon Musk was going to put $250 million into Trump's campaign? Yeah. And that Jake Tapper, to name one, would write a book about how infirm poor Joe Biden was. How about this guy? He doesn't look that healthy to me. I don't see that
$1 billion, though. I mean, there was plenty of money on the Democratic side,
She did a phenomenal job. She also just raised the morale in general. It went from this doom and gloom to this bright light of hope, which is, when you think about it, hope is what Obama ran on. People want hope. They don't want carnage and dark and nothingness. But the thing I think she got right there, she was talking about, she says it was reckless to leave this decision to run again to Joe and Jill Biden and the people around them. And I said repeatedly, right here, over and over again, it seems like people are too close to this situation. And it wasn't about his mental stability, because she even says in there, he was amazing. She writes very clearly. She wasn't hiding anything.
Yeah, but that was the perception that people had because of people like I just mentioned.
Well, but you could conflate two things. She addresses his debate performance and says that he was tired. He'd been on 2 trips. But my point here is being the president of the United States is the most consequential job in the world. If you think someone is going to be tired or not going to be able to handle it, you put your best person in. So I would say that it was always up to the people around them, and I didn't know until her remarks how separated the vice president and the president's teams are. I think this country deserves better. This is not an ego trip where someone gets credit, someone does it. You're a team or you're not a team.
Yeah, I think to your point, Sarah, you know, I only read a chapter of the book so far. It really was revelatory. She really gave a lot of insight into what was happening during those 107 days. And what she wrote was that when polls indicated that I was getting more popular, the people around him, Biden, didn't like the contrast that was emerging. None of them grasped that if I did well, he did well. Okay. And so it was the machine was working against her when they should have been working for the country and for the party.
Well, that's her perspective.
And that's unfortunate.
That is her perspective.
Well, I think she was living it. And I also think one of the things that she says, in retrospect, everyone was saying it's Joe and Jill's decision, and she was saying that as well. And she says, in retrospect, it was reckless because the stakes were simply too high. Look at what we are dealing with now as a country. Exactly. The stakes were too high. And the last thing that I will say, is she herself said that all the people in the White House, she was in the worst position to make the case for Joe Biden to step aside because it would have seemed poisonously disloyal.
It wasn't her
And we
place.
know that Joe Biden loves, demands loyalty, and he gives loyalty. And so I think she's a very loyal person, and I think that is why she didn't say anything.
But
Well,
you know,
I
see,
also think that a part of the problem is when you have other people. See, I don't think you can say it shouldn't be the team's decision. That's what it has always been. We've never had anything like this before that we've had to deal with. So that was their decision that they made. Yeah, he messed up in the thing, and people weren't getting the information in the debate. But okay, I got all of that. But the divisive for me is if the Democrats had kept their mouths shut and looked like, hold on, hear what I'm saying. If they had kept their mouths shut and took care of this in-house, as opposed to making it a public spectacle, I think people would have had a better feel about it.
Yeah,
they
turned against the president.
Well,
The one thing, though, if I could, just to broaden this convo, is I do think that we're afraid of isms in this country, and we should be. Sexism, racism, those are all horrible things. Ageism is a horrible thing, but there's also just biology and science and stats. Democrats have had 5 lawmakers die while in office, where you have a razor-slim majority, and because of that, consequential legislation that impacts every American, that many of you are going to say is terrible for the country, has been able to be passed. We have to be able to have tough conversations.
You've been there
But
forever,
I'm sorry.
since the dinosaurs.
Well, let me
But the
finish
stats are there that, like, you guys could have had better numbers if you were willing to say it might be time to step aside.
But you can't say that to a sitting president who's busting his ass trying to keep
And
everything
doing
going
good job.
and moving. Listen, people love to go back and say what we should have done. We should have run a better campaign. We should have run a better campaign. People wanted to hear what they heard. They got what they wanted. I don't understand why we got to relitigate it. It happened, and now we're all sitting in it, and it's everybody's fault.
But the elephant in the room is that this country will not elect a woman. That's the real bottom line.
But the one thing that respectfully we're always going to disagree on, Whoopi, is voters should have a say.
I don't black woman.
I don't believe that just the political parties should have a say in who is the nominee and who is elected.
Well, that's
and
what that's what everything is supposed to be for. You say, I want to be the guy that runs, and then a whole bunch of delegates get together and say, yeah, that's our
There's
dude.
no primary when it's a sitting president, and
No.
75% of voters said they thought that Biden may be fine for when he was in office, but was too old for another term. That's voters' only way to say I have an issue with a poll.
And therein lies the rub. What the hell's happening now?
Yeah.